Don't really want to jinx anything before it happens, but we have what should be an all-time edition of Waking the Red Weekly presented by Footy Talks today. My name is Mitchell Tierney, and it is my personal most favorite time of the year, which is, of course, the international break when Canada plays, of course. We'll chat some national team ahead on the show, as well as some Toronto FC takeaways at this international break stage of the season, as well as get you set for tonight's big game for Canada against Suriname. But it's not what we're talking about on this week's show that has me so excited. It's who we're talking about it with. An amazing doubleheader of guests. We've got Rachel Doerrie, host of Staff and Graph podcast, followed by none other than SiriusXM and TV host Kristian Jack. But first, joined as always by the main men, Jeffrey P, Nesker, Michael Singh. How you guys doing?
Yeah, it's game day, man. We said this, we hyped this up. Biggest Canada men's national team match in years. And, I'm just super excited to see what happens tonight after TFC, Canada's, run early on in this World Cup qualifying campaign. I'm hopeful, man, and it's something we haven't been able to say for a couple of years.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I wish it was a little earlier. It wasn't a 9:05 kickoff, but you know what? Again, we've been waiting for so long for Canada to play a really truly meaningful match again. I mean, it hasn't been since Nations League against the States that it was this important of a game. So I like you guys, I'm just absolutely buzzing to see what the men in red can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was actually listening to Extra Time. I think this week, and that was off the back of USA beating Mexico, of course, in that absolutely insane match on Sunday night. A perfect CONCACAF match.
Nations League, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, they kept on talking about this rivalry between the U.S. and Mexico and how this is going to be a thing for the next couple of years. And, with Mexico getting a bit older and the U.S. with such a young team, it's, it could be like a turning of the guard. And I'm thinking to myself, gentlemen, what about Canada? Where does Canada fit into all of this? Because in my opinion, at least, Canada can hang with both of those teams. So they might have to play a little bit of a dark horse here moving forward.
I think they will. I think they kind of have to prove it first. I mean, this is a Canada team that has beat the U.S. once in the last
32 years.
It's 34 maybe. I can't remember. 34 years, probably more now.
1-1 in their last two games.
That's true.
Yeah.
We also, I don't think, have ever beaten Mexico, if I'm correct in that, at the senior level. So, I agree with you on paper, and in terms of where the trajectory of this team is, they should be, every bit up with those sides, but you got to beat the Surinames, you got to beat the Haitis first before, you can even get to that stage. So, as excited as I am for tonight, there's never a Canada match I go into that I'm not worried about, even Aruba. There's never one that I'm not, at least slightly, because I've been burned so many times before.
Yeah, speaking of the MLS mothership, there's a serious dearth of Canada coverage on there. I mean, there's so much hyperbole about the U.S. men's national team. It's unbelievable, and there's almost no counterpoint with respect to the Canadian team. So I choose to take that as they're very afraid of us, and they don't want to cover the Canadian team because we're about to clean their clocks. So let's go with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mitch, we have a couple of guests coming on today, so I don't know how much time me, you, or Jeff are going to get into this, but you're Mr. Canada Soccer, so I did want to ask you some questions about this game tonight. How are you feeling with Canada going against, a tough team in what should be Suriname today?
I'm feeling as optimistic as I ever can be. Again, like I said, I've seen this team, bottle some big moments before, bottle some big moments in very bad ways, but it just seems like there's such a new generation. Even against Aruba, you see Alfonso and Jonathan David, that double sub, come on the field and then just, both score, wreck that team essentially. I just don't think there's any team outside of the two we mentioned, the United States and Mexico, that have the pieces to consistently stop what Canada has in terms of offensive weapons. So, even if they do concede tonight, I can't see a situation where Suriname is able to hold out Canada, and that excites me. That's something that I think we've been waiting for a long time with this national team, where the first goal doesn't end the game for Canada.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably my biggest takeaway. Is I think we have enough here where we should be able to get this done, and hopefully in comfortable fashion. For my sake and for the team's sake.
Yeah, a comprehensive win would be great moving forward into that two-legged. What are they calling it? A final, a semifinal, path to the octagon? Like, does it have a name?
The next stage.
The next stage. Level up Canada.
Obviously tonight, if you guys are wondering, Canada need a victory or a draw tonight to advance to the next round, where they're going to face either Haiti or Nicaragua in what I think people are calling the second round, and that'll be in the form of a two-legged tie. So obviously, there you go. Everyone's favorite word. You still, you need to get past Suriname tonight, which, as Mitch kind of pointed to there, it's not an easy challenge by any means. They're a team with, obviously, they're a Dutch colony, so they're a team with a lot of Eredivisie players, players that play in the Netherlands there. And those guys, they're talented players. They're one of the world's top leagues, and they also have the leading goal scorer right now in World Cup qualifying in this group, at least, and that's the nephew of Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. I'm sorry if I butcher your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nigel Hasselbank. So he has 6 goals, which is actually more than what Lucas Cavallini and Kyle Larin have. So they have a goal scoring threat up top, and this will be the first real test for Canada's defense, which we know is the biggest question mark with this team.
They have 1 goal scoring threat. We have 1,000.
There you go.
I'd like to, at the end of the day, their backline's kind of scary. Their midfield gives me absolutely no hives whatsoever. Their forward line's all right. It'll be tough. I don't necessarily. I mean, I like this over preparation, but I'd like to think that we've got this one. I'd like to think we've got this one.
But let's be real. Like, this is a game Canada should win. Yeah. Right? If you want to be contenders and considered one of the top nations in CONCACAF region, this is a game you have to win. And I think we've come a long way in very little time. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the likes of Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David really breaking onto the scene over the past year. And now it's not just those 2 guys either. Aside from their center backs, Canada have depth really at every single position. And it's an interesting question as to what will be their best starting 11 tonight. Because I don't think any of us have a sure idea of what John Perman's going to throw out there.
Yeah, most definitely. I think the back line is the most interesting thing here, just because, like you mentioned, Canada could easily win and go blow for blow with Suriname, win a nice 5-2 game or something like that. I would really like to see them, shepherd Suriname and have a much better performance at the back, because I think that would be a better indication that Canada's really headed in a good direction. If they can potentially hold a clean sheet or 1 goal, and that would be massive for Canada's performance, even if they do get through. So that's one of the things I'm watching for tonight. But we are now joined by our first guest of this mega show, Rachel Doerrie. Will be joining us shortly, host of the Staff and Graph podcast, as well as an expert on all things Toronto FC and Bayern Munich. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good, Rach. Thanks for joining us, man.
Have you told the other 2 what our connection is?
I might have mentioned it to them, but go ahead, Rach. Share the story to the world.
We were neighbors growing up for 10 years, and I used to play basketball in his backyard. So him and his older brothers taught me how to play basketball.
We used to bully her a bit, just a little bit.
Just a little.
Yeah,
I'm sorry
still
to hear
sitting
that.
here in the same house.
Spend an hour with him a week, and that's enough.
I'm stealing Mikey, by the way. That's pretty awesome. I think I might.
Yeah, most people actually call me that. Most people call me Mikey, but you guys are just acquaintances. There you go. You guys are just acquaintances, so I think we should stick to Michael. No, I'm just
Damn.
messing around. All right, let's get into it, guys. I don't know if we have too much time, but let's talk some TFC here because, there are some serious question marks, eh, Mitch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, not an ideal start to the season for Toronto FC. How much would you attribute that to, I guess, more external factors like playing away from home, start preseason, that sort of thing, and more things that they can control in terms of where they're fitting players into the roster, who's playing, that sort of thing?
I think it's hard to attribute a lot of it to the fact that they're playing away from home because they had to do that last year and they were pretty good. So I don't know how much I attribute to that. There's obviously the elephant in the room of DPs just not playing at all. And then you've got a roster that's almost relatively the same in terms of its parts, but you've got a new coaching staff with the exception of the goalkeeper coach. I think Westberg having to stay home for family reasons at the beginning really hindered that. I don't think the coach has done himself any favors in the media or in how he deploys or does anything with regard to players and publicly. Like, I think a lot of it has to be attributed to that. And the system they're playing, I don't frankly think it suits the players that they have and the type of players that they have. So you have to show an ability to adjust. And I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I think those are all valid points so far early on this campaign. You guys still got me there? Or am I frozen?
You were frozen, but it was awesome.
All right, sweet. As long as I look good. Yeah, so what I want to talk about next was, you kind of touched on there. That was Quentin Westberg and sort of the dilemma there in net. Because from a TFC fan perspective, at least, Q was our goalie the last 2 seasons. He was not just our goalie. This guy was our savior. And he literally put us on his back, leading us to the MLS Cup final in 2019. He played really well in 2020. But in 2021, under a new head coach, in 11 matches so far, he hasn't been able to get a look in net. What are your thoughts about TFC's goaltending situation early on right now, and what about the job overall that Chris Armas has done?
I mean, I feel like frustrated is an appropriate way to put it. I find it, it's tough. Goalkeeper wise, you retain the goalkeeper coach, and you have no reason not to. He's fantastic, John Conway. But I don't think you can publicly come out and say we're doing 50-50 when the fans expected to see Q, given his track record, the fact he wore the armband a few times last year as well. I don't think that can be ignored. That clearly talks about the leadership qualities that he brings to the team and how valued he is in the locker room. And so to say we're going to go 50-50 and then to not even give this guy a chance when Alex Bono has done nothing to cement himself as a number one, to me, you're only hurting yourself at that point. Q, is far and away the better ball distributor. I don't feel like that could be debated. I feel like every time any of the 4 of us watch a game and Bono is distributing the ball, there's a mini heart attack that happens. So I think from that perspective, whether it's him getting a yellow card, him giving up soft goals, there's no reason to not give Q a chance at this point. And I know Conway's been pushing for him to get a chance, but ultimately Chris Armas is the guy that writes the names on the lineup sheet. And I think you're kind of getting to a point here where Q is frustrated. I wouldn't be surprised if Conway is frustrated. And because Q's such a valued veteran of the team, you're going to lose the vets in that room if he hasn't already. And I suspect that's sort of already happening based on kind of what we're seeing with Josie and some other things that have happened on the training pitch. But as far as Armas goes, I don't think it's a surprise that I don't like him. I mean, can't adjust. He seems very stubborn. Everything I heard is small man syndrome. It's very difficult to go from the most legendary coach, most successful coach in your club's history to a guy that can't even seem to answer media questions appropriately without taking anything as a personal attack. And I just think from a tactical perspective, if you want to play this long ball, which I don't even know why you would want to do that, you might want to play the goalkeeper that is best suited for that, and that would be Westberg because he's a better ball distributor. And if you're going to play up like that, you're going to need a guy that can kind of be the general at the back, and that's exactly what Westberg is. So to me, the strategy is off for the personnel, and there doesn't seem to be an adjustment. He's quoting Guardiola, which is like just ridiculous in so many manners. So for me, it's disappointing to say the least, because I mean, my other team, Bayern, like they caused me enough of a headache this season to begin with the drama going on off the field. But the one thing I can depend on is there will be good coaching there.
Oh my God. So now I don't even know what question to ask now, because you segued perfectly into both of my questions. I will say this. When Vanny went on his summer holiday and watched like one Man City game, he came back and immediately was like, I need a 4-3-3 immediately, and I got to buy wingers and play them inverted. So it's not exactly, Chris Armas that's coming here and saying, oh my God, I'm Pep. Like Vanny had some issues with that too. I think I'll give you the Bayern question, which is, what do you think the hiring of Nagelsmann means for Fonzie and his continued development at that club?
Oh, I don't totally pay attention to Canadian men's soccer. I'm more interested in Kristian Sinclair because she's awesome.
Shout
She
out.
sure is. Shout out.
Yeah. I keep seeing these international lists and I'm like, you are forgetting Kristian Sinclair. For me, I think, first of all, Hansi Flick, like as a German through and through, I'm thrilled that he's with the national team. And while I was angry that it got to a point that he had to leave in the first place, I think Nagelsmann is like, you couldn't handpick anybody better. He's a Bayern boy. He believes in the development of young players and putting them, not only just like this whole thing about player kids, which is what is happening with TFC, and it's going not well right now.
Well, we haven't seen him in a couple of weeks, so.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
But Nagelsmann believes in putting young players in a position to succeed. So that's where the mentality is a little bit different. And I think with Davies, he values speed. You saw that in Leipzig with Upamecano, who is now going to be at Bayern. And Fonzie's the fastest player, arguably, in the world. And so I think from a development perspective, we may see a couple of things. We'll obviously see him at left back. I don't think that that'll change. But I do think that when there wants to be a formation change or you want to rotate in some other defenders, I think you could see him play a little bit further up the pitch, sort of in like a winger kind of capacity. And that's exactly where he's likely going to be playing for Canada. So I think just kind of giving him that freedom. Nagelsmann is very much like, I will give you the freedom to showcase your talent and to bring what you can to the team. So I think the reins will be taken off a little bit from that perspective. And so
Nice.
I would expect that Fonzie's kind of patrolling up and down the field and doing his thing, kind of like what he was doing for Barcelona. But yeah, I would say fans of like the Canadian men's team, be very happy that this guy is the manager of probably your most promising young player.
Amazing. Perfect.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to hear. Yeah, I think.
How many fans are we making of Bayern right now because he plays there?
Lots.
Seriously.
Lots and lots and lots.
Well, like the thing is, like we couldn't before last week, we couldn't really buy Canadian men's national team jerseys with players' names on it. So I've seen quite a few Alphonso Davies Bayern Munich jerseys out there because people are trying to, obviously rep Fonzie. And even Michael Bradley's kid was repping an Alphonso Davies number 19 Bayern Munich jersey over the summer, not summer, but last year. So, there is that effect going around, and Fonzie is definitely spreading the love there from Canada to Bayern.
Absolutely.
More Bayern, the better. And welcome to my club.
I think I saw a tweet that said Nagelsmann was considering using wingbacks next season, or at least that was one of his preferred formations. And I texted one of my buddies immediately, Ballon d'Or for Alfonso, because I feel like that position he would just thrive in. But I wanted to move on a little bit to your more analytical background and talk a little bit about soccer analytics. Where does the sport compare maybe to some other sports in terms of, analytical analysis, video scouting, all those sorts of things, and where can it still improve?
Yeah, so I think the baseball is kind of the beacon of everything. That's kind of where things started. But I think soccer has really come a long way. You've got American football, which I mean, they do their own thing because there's a lot of money at their disposal there. But when you look at soccer, it's more of a flow game. It's very similar to hockey from that perspective, in that things just continuously happen. But you've got a lot more forward-thinking people in soccer. You've got people coming over from Europe to work in MLS, like Ravi in, I believe, Seattle. You've got Real Madrid, Liverpool, Bayern, like a bunch of big clubs investing heavily in analytics. You've got national teams really using analytics to help it see. That's how, apart from his play, that's how the Germans identified that Joshua Kimmich was going to be good at right back, right? He was essentially a replacement for Philipp Lahm. And so what we're doing here is you're using analytics, and there's passing analytics in soccer, which we don't have in hockey. And that tells you, okay, what kind of service is this player getting? Is this player not scoring, or are they scoring because of the service that you're getting? And I mean, just kind of using an example off the top of my head, like Robert Lewandowski doesn't score 43 odd goals this year without service from Thomas Muller and Kimmich and Goretzka. Like, so there are analytics that tell you that kind of thing. And so when you're looking at a transfer market, or you're looking at a value of a player, you're able to attribute value to things other than, can you score, essentially. And I think that's super important, because that goes to team building. But where I think we can kind of improve is, I don't really buy into the prediction side of things. Like, I don't think that building models to prescribe, who's going to win is necessarily helpful in that juncture. I think that when you're using analytics, you want to use it to project your players. And that's kind of what I'm doing at school, but with hockey. But it could be applied to soccer. So, like, you want to be able to project somebody like a Jaquil Marshall-Rutty. What is he, based on his play in the academy and the chip tracking, because there's chips in the boots now that they use to track. What does his data say about what he can become? Is he better as a striker? Is he better as an attacking midfielder? Is he better as a wing? Like, I think using analytics to determine how players play with each other and how they best fit in the grand scheme of things is kind of where we're going next.
Yeah, that's something Chris Armas has talked about too. Is he has been relying on some of those analytics, like, I don't know, like expected passing percentage and like the completed. I know you're kind of shocked there, like this is.
Hold on, let me bring up Ivan's comment, because would analytics help our offense?
It's something they've talked about. They're using for sure. So I mean,
well,
obviously,
Devin is so smart.
Yeah, shout out Devin for sure.
Unbelievable. That guy is so smart. Every conversation I have with him, I'm like, oh my God, you are just unbelievably smart. But I think, Chris, like, there needs to be a delicate balance between using analytics and your actual play style. And I think when you have somebody that can do that, Pep Guardiola is actually the best example of that. Like, that guy clearly knows what he's doing without the analytics. I don't think that could be debated. But when he has that level of information at his disposal, all it does is serve to make his decision making even more informed and even better. So I think that you need to use analytics. I'm not at all convinced that Chris does that, just based on like what my eyes tell me. And I know like there are some public statistics that you can look at. I'm not entirely convinced of that. I do think it would help, but you never want to be too reliant. And so like video scouting, obviously in the age of a pandemic, super important. Like basically Soteldo was exclusively video scouted because you can't travel.
Yeah.
But I think there is value in like going and seeing the player. But using video when you want to show them to a coach, like it's not easy for a coach to just fly here, there, and everywhere. That's more the technical director or the GM in MLS's case. And so I think video scouting from that perspective is important, but you've got to balance it. If like analytics are salad, essentially, if you have too much video, then you just kind of have lettuce. But if you have too much analytics, you have too much dressing. But if you have everything, then you're melding everything together, and that's how you get the best result. That's at least.
And a
I don't like salads. I don't like salads.
Salads are the
Okay,
best.
then call it soup.
Of course you like salad. I mean, what is a burger if not a salad with meat on a bun? Come on, man. Considering TFC's slow start, let's reach into your analytic crystal ball. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel, or is this a lost season?
That depends. With or without this coaching staff.
So, I mean, we've had a couple comments asking us to ask you about the Armas out, the calls for Armas out. I'm of the mind that it's too early. Are you of the mind that it's too late?
Yes. I don't believe in like when a coach comes in, a manager comes in, and you could just tell that things are awry, and you know that behind the scenes there were better options available, like European options available. I think that was disappointing to begin with, and I think it's very obvious to see that this is a Curtis hire, and like credentials be damned. But for me, like the biggest red flag, and just kind of being in soccer and being around some of the people that I have exposure to and whatnot, like it's okay if the team doesn't perform right off the hop with a new manager, because that happens all the time. What's not okay is when that manager shows a complete inability to adapt. And I think what we're seeing here is, like, I'm watching the same players, Marky Delgado, Jonathan Osorio, Michael Bradley, Chris Mavinga, like all those guys have been with the team for years. And I watch TFC now, and they can't even complete 5 straight passes on a regular basis. Those players were completing far more than 5 straight passes under Greg Vanney. So that tells me there's a lack of attention to detail. There's a lack of just general want to do anything. And the system, frankly, just like doesn't fit with the personnel that TFC has. So for me, if Armas can show that he can adapt and maybe get on the player, like get on the same page as the players, because it's super clear that they're on a different page right now, then I think you could potentially get yourself in the bottom end of the playoff hunt. Otherwise, like I think if they brought in a new coach, they'd be fine, provided they were obviously like qualified and had experience. I think TFC, if they want to be a big club, which they clearly spend the money to be a big club, like you need to walk the walk as well when it comes to your coaching staff. And I don't think that Armas is that. Like he's definitely not, when you look at like Phil Neville or Greg Vanney, like some of the other coaches around MLS, like this is not the coach that TFC should have. And I don't think he's the best coach to lead them to success. And so for me, I would seriously consider getting rid of him. But otherwise, you have to have a serious discussion with him over this like international break and basically say, you need to adjust, like you need to change, because the best coaches know how to adapt. And the number one guy who is good at that is Pep Guardiola.
It's Rachel out here.
Champions League final.
There you go.
And then he melts.
Except then, yes.
Yeah.
Rachel's out here spinning fire, guys. And, you know, I got to say, like, for the most part, I agree with you. Aside from the fact that, kind of harsh to say Armas out already after like 11 matches, but he hasn't done himself any favors right now. And I totally agree that he definitely has to change up his play style for this team, because this team is far too good on paper to be producing the results it has been, straight up. But before we let you go, Rach, want to end the show on a high note, a very high note. Let's talk about Josie, man. And
I know.
And let's stop, man. Like, what are you seeing here with Josie Altidore? What is the situation right now? And, you know, what do you make of all of this? Because it's really bizarre to see another TFC legend go out in this style, if that's the way it's heading.
Yeah. It's very disheartening. I will say that. I think Josie has shown his love for this city. He intends to live here after he retires. Like, it's very clear that he bleeds Toronto. And so to me, I understand he's probably not worth his contract anymore. Like, I don't
Stop
think
probably.
yeah, like that's putting it kindly. But to be treated the way that he is being treated, and to the fact that what stands out to me about Josie, and I very rarely see this with players of his ilk in MLS, is he is loved by multiple facets of that dressing room. So the young guys, Jaquil, Ralph, Jaden, they gravitate to him. Like, they love him, right? And then you look at the older players. Eric Zavaleta, very good friends. Chris Mavinga, very good friends. Obviously, Michael. Like, Josie is almost that, like, go-between because he relates to the younger players and he relates to the elder statesman, and he is an elder statesman. So for me, I think he's very important, and it is definitely disheartening to see that for the second time in 3.5 years, or actually 2 years, we're like TFC is going to have the second best, maybe third best player in club history, essentially shunned. And I go back to this, like, Josie's been the same Josie, whether it's Chris or Greg that's managing the team. And I think what we're seeing here is Chris is just not equipped to handle the personalities that are Josie, Michael, Chris Mavinga, Q. Like, I just don't think that's there. And does he try and have great relationships with his players? Yes, he does. But if these players, like, if you can't give them their space to operate and understand that sometimes you're going to have to treat a DP a little bit differently than you're treating a young player, like, that's a big problem. So for me, knowing what happened on the training ground that day, I would say that Josie's in the right here, and that I don't think he necessarily deserved to be suspended. And quite frankly, when you are arguing with your coach, you need a veteran player to stand up and kind of be that guy, whether it's Michael or it's Josie or it's Oso. Like, you need someone. It can't be Ralph or Jaquil or Markey. Like, it needs to be somebody with some clout in that dressing room. And so for Josie to stand up and go at Chris, like, honestly, I think that was more well taken in the dressing room than a lot of people like to think it was. And I think that if they get rid of Josie in a non-amicable way, we're looking at much bigger issues happening in that locker room.
It does send a really awful message. Yeah.
Like, at that point, you're willing to tell your players, we don't give a crap about what you've accomplished for this franchise or what you mean to this club. If our coach doesn't like you, you're gone. Like, that's not a good, and it's a terrible message. And I think that this is a situation that Bill Manning is going to have to get involved in, and that is never good.
I wrote in my piece, it's almost a bit too convenient for Toronto FC for, an incident to spark up like this and then all of a sudden say, okay, Josie, here's your contract. Goodbye. Let's go get another designated player.
That is serious.
It's a little too convenient too, right? So
oh no, it is very convenient. I'm with him on this one. It's extremely convenient that Chris doesn't love Josie, and now this has happened. Like, I knew that coming in when he was hired, that he didn't like Altidore. And so I am not surprised that this has played out the way it has. But it's very, very disappointing. And I think you look at how Michael's treated, like, he's going to be in TFC as long as he sees fit, whether it's on the field or with the academy or in a front office role. I don't think they see that with Josie. And I think that, quite frankly, like, there are going to be fans at BMO in the not too distant future. And this coaching staff is in for a rude welcome if they do not get this sorted quickly, because you can't shove Altidore out and be bad and then come back to BMO and expect fans to like you, because they're, one, siding with Josie, and two, like, you're telling me that we allowed Greg Vanny to walk for whatever is going on right now? Like, that's not going to sit well with fans that are used to competing for Canadian championships and MLS Cups. So I think that's a huge issue, and they need to tread very carefully.
Yeah, well, considering what we've seen in the comments here, I think you're speaking for the fans a lot here. A lot of clapping emojis, that sort of thing going on. So some people saying that we should have you on full time. So Michael, that might be your exit music. We'll give you a no show. Yeah, we'll give you a no show.
We need to have the two Richmond Hill kids in here.
There you go.
Fair enough. Yeah, maybe I'm out. I'm not sure, but no, definitely appreciate your time this week. This has been awesome.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Anytime, Rich. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Right, I got to do the removals. Okay. KJ's here, by the way.
Fire show. I'm ready, man.
Perfect.
I'm ready. Let's keep this
we'll
up.
Make an incredible super sub here. Now joined by Kristian, Jack, Sirius XM. Of course, as seen on TV. Kristian, how you doing this week?
Great. How's it going?
Really well, KJ, as I'm sure you've overheard. We're just getting into
Hello,
some.
Rachel. Rachel's saying hi, KJ, as well. Great to see Rachel, and great to see someone talking a lot more sense than you three.
always. Any one of our guests. That's why we have you guys on, is to sort of just line us up, get us in order.
No, I'm just that's a compliment. Nothing to go, you guys. Just I'd like to say that I watched the entire show. I only saw the last 10 minutes because I was doing a Euro 2020 podcast preview with somebody else. But...
You're a busy boy. Got to respect the hustle, KJ.
Oh, well, I mean, busy. We're talking football. It's not saving lives here, are we?
You save our lives a little bit with the amount of coverage that you provide, man, KJ.
Yeah.
I've already got a little bit of sweaty palms about tonight. Let's hope it goes well.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy, we're right there with you.
Yeah.
Well, let's actually, before we get into the Canada-Suriname game, let's continue the conversation a little bit, as I'm sure you can tell based on watching the last 10 minutes and social media and that sort of thing. There's definitely a bit of panic here for Toronto FC fans as we reach the international break. What for you is kind of the biggest concern about their slow start and the way they've started this season?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of concerns, right? I think that the squad isn't as deep as they potentially thought it was in the off-season. I think that the concerns are there in terms of it's an aging team, and it's not necessarily a team. It's a team that is trying to transition on the fly, where you're trying to respect the elder players who are getting paid, to play, while also trying to integrate that youth that can come in and really test them. So that's been a challenge, the thing about the young players is everyone says the same thing, right? We've got to get the young players, give them opportunities, but you've got to allow them to fail and still come back and play. And I think what we've seen, particularly with the Arrow decision and the Priso decision, I think is one that we can really focus on there to say that, okay, what's going there? And suddenly it's like it's outcome versus process, right? Outcome managers are, okay, we got to get a win today. I don't care about anything else. We got to win. And when you started, it's all about processes. This is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to be. This is what we're going to do. We're going to be a young player. We're going to press. We're going to do. And it's all about the processes. But processes are fine as long as you're given the time. But if you start failing and processes start failing with you, then it just becomes outcome driven. And I think they're spiraling a little bit right now, and they're starting to think we're just going to win games, and the processes are starting to be pushed aside, at least externally. Now, internally, I don't know enough, and they've got to keep that focus on a little bit. But yeah, there are major concerns. The second one for me is that Major League Soccer's Eastern Conference is good. It's good. And they're a long way away right now from the best. And the best have done a really good job of scouting really well, getting youth in there. And, you look at, with teams with real stability at the top of the Eastern Conference. So it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a real challenge for TFC. And obviously not playing games at home is another hurdle that we hopefully can get over pretty quickly.
Yeah, very soon, if we are to believe what's going on social media. I asked Rachel the same question. Is it too early for the Armis out calls on social media?
On social media, no, because social media.
I maybe shouldn't have qualified that. No, is it too early for an Armis out call? I gave you an easy out, KJ.
I get what you mean.
It's too early.
I took your easy out. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I think it probably is too early. Yeah, I think obviously, I always laugh with these kind of conversations because, we could be having one of these with John Herdman. Hopefully we don't, but we could be having one of these conversations. Ultimately the evidence is delivered to the people behind the scenes, and they're the ones who make the decision on it, right? So, we only see what we see, which is the games on the weekends or on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, and that is our evidence. As jurors, we're given that evidence, and we have to deliver the jury decision. That evidence is let's be honest, it is underwhelming.
Flimsy.
It's underwhelming. Yeah, very flimsy. Yeah, but if we can only be presented with that evidence, then we go, okay. And Chris Armis will be the first one, if he was ever to come on your show, to say the same thing. Look, you're judged by outcomes and results, and it hasn't been good. And the performances, alarmingly, haven't been good either. If they'd have played the way well and they'd lost a few games, I'm like, okay, there's evidence there to say no. But behind the scenes, there's a lot more other evidence. What's going on in terms of, bringing the team together? Are they galvanized? Are they still behind him? Do they believe in him? Are they, all of those things? I think what I would say is that, first of all, he's a great guy. He's everything, and people will say that. He's a guy that you want to go for a beer with. He's the kind of guy you root for. The second thing I would say is that he came into this job with his eyes wide open. And I think a lot of people have misplaced where Toronto FC were at the end of the 2020 season. I think quite a lot of people have done that. I think some of the players have done it. I think some of the people who are in charge of putting together the roster have done that. I think a lot of fans have done that. And I think some of the media have done that. And I don't think Chris Armas has done that. I think Chris Armas came in understanding, and he talked a lot about 2019, that TFC went to an MLS Cup, but conceded more goals than his Red Bulls team, and got on a run late in the season, and suddenly everyone looks at that as being a successful season. And that's fine. That's how you judge MLS. How do you finish? Not how you start, not how you go in the middle. But there were holes on that team, and I think he saw that, and I think he understood that. And my point being, guys, is that I don't think he's blindsided by this. I think he understood what he was coming into, and I think he understood that there was some difficult, deep waters, and he's swimming in them right now.
Yeah, I mean, to follow up, there had to be a margin considered by the front office for how much anti-success they were going to get. And I wonder if those goalposts have moved, or if this is what they expected, and it's just rough waters that we have to navigate. My other follow up is this. I think people are too quick to put that Red Bull chip on Chris's shoulder and build that narrative that like he's willing to bend TFC in order to exercise his own personal coaching demons. And I also think that we're taking him to task because he's just not as charming as Greg Vanney is. He's not as articulate. He's not as well spoken, and that's not his fault. I mean, I don't want to put his feet over the coals because he's got a different personality than our last gaffer. And too much of what I see, I find I can almost directly attribute to that. Right? Like we're used to having one babysitter or one dad, and now we've got a different dad, and we want our old dad back, but we can't have him. So.
Best analogies in the game. Best analogies in the game.
Well, I mean, because didn't we expect this? It feels like a lot of these knee-jerk calls for everyone's head, in addition to ignoring the realities of the world that we live in and that soccer's a business, are also kind of really transparent. Like we just don't like him as a person because, we really liked Greg Vanney. And I wonder if you agree with that rambling mess.
No, it's not rambling at all. I think it's really on point. I think a lot of the times perception is everything in terms of managers understanding how they are in front of a camera and, and how they can be perceived. And people think, oh, I like that guy. I can trust that guy. There's that warm feeling about him. He's a gentleman and I can take care of that. Everything that you said about Greg Vanney is right. I'm not saying that what Greg Vanney was doing on camera or in front of the fans was a facade. I mean, it was genuine. It was genuine, But what I mean by that is that it doesn't make Greg Vanney any better of a guy than Chris Armas. It's just they're just very different people. I always say this, and I may have said this on your show before, is that speaking in public and finding the right words, and I think I can come from a little bit of experience, isn't easy. And sometimes how you can do that as a leader is certainly something that ticked the box for Greg Vanney, right? And I think Chris speaks a little bit differently than that. And I agree with you. It doesn't take anything away from his knowledge of the game. As I said, I got a ton of respect for him in terms of coming in with his eyes wide open, understanding that I think he looked at this Toronto FC squad and saw holes. And like I said earlier, I don't think enough people did. And those holes are there. And they have been magnified a little bit more by the fact that some key players have been injured, and they are a very different team without Pozuelo and Osorio on the pitch. And if they can get those guys going again and start gathering some chemistry, then I think that they can start getting on a run and start getting back to where they feel like they belong, which is obviously being in the playoffs. And then who knows what can happen? We all know in Major League Soccer, a playoff run, as they did in 2019, can suddenly plug those holes up and suddenly you're sailing again.
We're the Sounders. I want to be the Sounders this year.
I was going to say, that sounds a lot like my Canadians right now, what they're going through.
Get out of here, Mitch. We got none of that talk on this show, okay? We ignore anything to do with the Montreal Canadiens here.
I can talk some hockey with you boys.
We're all sad except for Mitch. So
KJ, I got something better to talk about. And
let's go, man.
Something I asked Rachel too. It's the Josie Altidore situation, man. It's obviously goes a lot deeper than I think the Jeff Carlisle report kind of put out there. I think there was more to that scene than just the one conversation. What do you make of that dilemma there that Ali Curtis, Bill Manning are faced with now with Josie Altidore? And is there a chance here that he's played his last game for Toronto FC?
I do think there's a very good chance he's played his last game for Toronto FC. I think that, how do these things get out, right? Like that's how I look at it. You start that way, right? It's like everyone starts, you can start looking at what's happening there, but then how did they get out? And, perception is everything. And you unfortunately have egos in here, and you do people doing damage control. And I think it's very important to state that if Josie Altidore's career is over with Toronto FC, I don't believe, and I might be wrong, and it'd be fascinating to hear your take on this and the fans. I don't think the fans will hold any grudges towards him. I think that they will be disappointed with the way that the last contract hasn't necessarily gone the way that they'd all have hoped, while understanding that's professional sports. And thanks for the memories. And we'll see you in a few years for a round of applause outside for coming back to the stadium. And then, by the way, as more heels start to be, the wounds start to be covered over, maybe we'll see that statue one day. I think that's the kind of thing that I think that fans will think of. I might be wrong, but it doesn't seem to be working. So what is the alternative? The alternative is let's try and figure this out. Let's try and get going. That I think was what the conversation was in the offseason. It's like, let's try and go. Every time Chris spoke publicly about Josie, he did so extremely positively, very glowing. And I don't think he did that just to be fake. I think he genuinely felt that everything that he complimented Josie for in his career, I think he needed to do that because he's had a tremendous career, and a lot of that times has been what he should be given a lot of credit for it. Sometimes things just don't work out, guys. Sometimes relationships don't work out, and I do think there's deeper issues with other relationships away from the Chris Armas, Josie Altidore issue. And I think for the good of the team and the good of the fan base, that now it's easier said than done, and a lot of money needs to be taken care of here. But if they can find some kind of amicable split, I think it'd probably be suited for both parties.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is the international break after all, so let's move on to talking some Canada. You alluded to this a little bit, but how big of a game is this for John Herdman? Because, all of a sudden the Suriname team looks a lot closer to Canada's team on paper in terms of the talent they have, and they've brought in over the past couple of months recruiting-wise. So what it comes down to tonight, or what one of the things it might come down to, is the culture and the tactics of John Herdman and what he does as Canada's manager. So in terms of games for Herdman, how big of a measuring stick is this one?
Oh, it's an enormous measuring stick for both John Herdman and his players. I think it's a game that we've all been waiting for, right? It's a game that the national team has been waiting for, fans have been waiting for, media. The ability to be tested in the big moments, and Canada, as I wrote last week, have been smashing teams for fun under John Herdman in so many games, and that's been great, right? Okay, records have been broken, goal scoring records have been smashed, everyone's coming off the field high-fiving, another 7-0, 11-0, 5-1, great. Okay, enough. Let's get to these games where we want to be tested, and the players want to be tested, and they want to show that they belong in that CONCACAF party. They want to get to they want to play those teams that we saw on Sunday night in that manic, crazy game that you couldn't between the United States and Mexico, right? You look at that and you go, I want to be part of that. If you're a top class player like Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Estacio, many others, you look at that and go, that's what I want. That's what I want. I want to be in that. I want to be involved in that. So, I just hope that tonight goes well and then the next two games go well. But I agree with you, Mitch. I think it's a big measuring stick for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, as a segue, like we all know that the national interest in the men's and women's international squads needs to grow. Assuming that they win this game, what would you say needs to happen? Almost like a unified thing in order to grow the game off the back of what looks to be 14, 16 more games just to qualify.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's tonight, right? Then there's another leg next week with the two-legged games, and if they can get through them, I'm already starting to feel it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to feel more questions being asked to me about them and what's going on, and explain this to me. And, I think when you're deep in it, like we are, it just becomes natural that, Canadian men's team, Canadian women's team, we just kind of know everything about it. But there's so many people out there, your Montreal Canadian fans, if you want to talk about it, or whoever it is, your hockey fans out there who are watching games who don't really know the story yet. They don't know the story. They don't care to know. Everyone's got a lot going on in their lives. By the way, I hope everyone's okay, because we're in difficult times and everyone's family. And, sports can be that distraction, but we've got to get to a point where those people need to know they're invested. How do you get them invested? 2 words: World Cup. That's how you get them invested. World Cup. Oh, Canada can get to a World Cup. What, the men's team, not the women's team? Yeah, the men's team can. There's still a chance to get. That's how you generate. That's how you generate everything you're talking about, Jeff. That's how you generate revenue. That's how you boost the identity of these players. That's why we need to hear more from them. That's what you get everything going with these players, and then you get into that. And as I wrote last week, the journey to try and get there becomes almost as important, if not more important, than the destination. They've got to get into that series of games, 14 matches and 5 international windows where they'll feel almost like a club team, where they're coming together for the good to beat those teams and go after them and try and get to finish in the top 4 somehow to get through it. And they'll back themselves to do it. There'll be teams in that group that they won't be intimidated by. But you got to get there. We got to get there.
Yeah.
And that's what makes these next 3 games so tense and so important.
Yeah. Reeling us back a little bit, KJ, so we don't get a little too far ahead of ourselves. I know you're going to be on the One Soccer broadcast tonight.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks,
what can you tell us about this Suriname team that poses a really real threat to Canada here? Because
we can't talk Canada's tactics or John Herman will yell at us.
I think it's been really interesting, being with the One Soccer guys and they've welcomed me in with open arms. I love my new family, so to speak. And Ollie and Wheels have had a little bit of controversy in Suriname, and they get they're big now in Suriname. I was joking with them the other day. That their pictures, they're up in the streets of Suriname with wanted posters right now.
Yeah. on the whiteboard that they can throw darts
they're
at.
After Ollie and Wheels for sure right now, for talking, particularly Ollie, for talking down this Suriname team. Look, do I think that they should beat Canada? No. Canada are far too talented for them, but we've been there before, boys. We know what this is like. The thing that they pose a threat with is they can beat Canada. They could beat them. And just by the fact that you have that, in the game, this mad game that we love and cover, of randomness, that a bounce here, a bounce there, a red card here, a dodgy mistake there, and suddenly you're like, oh boy, what could happen? And they present that chance. Now, there might not be. It might be Canada 2-0 up after 20 minutes. Let's just get through this game. It could be very calm and fingers crossed, right? But it could be, oh boy, Sheldon Becker is a player for Union Berlin who plays on the left-hand side that can cut in pretty quickly. He's got a rapid shot. Sherry plays in midfield for Maccabi Haifa. He's very talented between the lines. He's left-footed. Got a lot of left-footers in the team that can open up teams, and they could get a goal. And if they get a lead, we're going to find out exactly what we want to find out about this Canada team, right? Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. The last time Canada went behind in a competitive game, the men's team, and came back and won, 2007 Gold Cup.
Whoa. 14
years. So, they present that challenge tonight to this team. Now, we hope they don't get that, but this team hasn't done that yet. In all the games they played, the U.S. game at BMO Field, arguably one of the big moments of the Canadians in the last 5 years, a monumental night that they outplayed the U.S. team. They didn't get that. Going behind in Orlando to the U.S. team when I was there, they didn't really get back into the game. Those moments when suddenly it's like, oh boy, back to the wall time. Let's see what we've got. That moment again. That's why I wrote about the Haiti game in 2019. They present you with challenges that could happen tonight. We'll all sit here and hope it doesn't.
Appreciate you dropping that stat, KJ, the 2007 one, because I know that's something you were saving for tonight's broadcast. So I appreciate you dropping that stat on this show, buddy.
We're previewing tonight. This is it, right?
Atiba was onside.
Yeah, that's not the only game in 2007 they should have come from behind in, to be honest.
You know what, Jeff? You bring up a great point, and that I was thinking about that this morning. These 3 games are for people that remember games like that. we'll open the bus. We'll welcome everybody on this bus when we get to the World Cup qualifiers, if we get there, and you can come on the hype train or we'll hype bus or whatever you call it. Everyone's going to come on, but you guys are going to be driving it. You guys have been through all the pain and the hurt, and you talk about Atiba was onside and all the nonsense that the Canada team have been through, and Honduras 2012 and many others. Many of us have seen so much of it, right? And the players that have lived through it. These are moments for guys like that, for you guys, to try and get through this, to say, hopefully we get to a point where some Canada fans are a little bit like Man City fans, where they don't really know what pain's like, But some Man City fans, they know what pain's like, and they've lived it.
Yeah.
And this moment they're seeing right now is still something they never take for granted.
Very true.
No, absolutely. I mean, when they subbed on J. Dave and Fonzie in that Aruba game, I mean, that was goosebump inducing. Like that screen cap's one of my favorite pictures I've ever seen. So,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
That was special.
I'm very excited for tonight.
Superheroes, right? Coming on.
Yeah, they look like the Avengers. It was
good
fantastic.
job. Yeah, they really did. It was great. We were talking and we got a little glimpse of an idea that they might come, but then you're like, are they really going to bother putting them on and risking them? But then you're like, look, they make sacrifices to leave their club teams to come over to play. And, young men like that, you're watching that team give up goals like that. You're like, yeah, get me on the pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
So true.
Yeah, I'll take another.
Exactly.
I'll take 20 minutes against these lads.
They're all chasing D-Row right now, especially Jonathan David. He seems like he's going to be there sooner rather than later. Yeah, but
exactly.
Yeah, as we said, 9:05 tonight, Canada take on Suriname on One Soccer. Of course, tune in earlier to catch KJ and all of them discussing the game. Thank you so much for your time today, KJ. Really appreciate
Thank you, KJ.
My pleasure,
Cheers,
guys. Keep
KJ.
up the great work. Thanks for all you do for Canada Soccer and for everything here and supporting us. And see you tonight, 8:30, One Soccer.
There you go, 8:30. That is the proper time.
That's a proper pregame show. I'm excited.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I wanted to get this story in before we move on, and just to kind of show the type of person that KJ is. Like, I invited him to get on the show last week, I think it was, and prior commitments, he wasn't able to get on. I look at my phone. I think it was maybe Sunday that KJ texted me, and he asked to come on this show because that's just the type of person that he is. If he gets an invitation, like he remembers it, and that speaks volumes to the character that he is. So we always appreciate having KJ's insight on the show. So
much.
Thank you again, KJ.
Much appreciation. It's
Darn it, Michael. I told Josh Cloak he wasn't our backup plan last week. Why did you have to tell that story?
We did not clear this in rehearsal. I mean, my goodness.
Just peeling the curtain back for everybody to see.
Okay. One Soccer has fixed the technical glitches. We got a thing here, and I want to speak on that because sure, they probably need a couple more servers, but at the end of the day, the bandwidth that we're bringing, right? Like I think they need to have us watch this game before they can fix any technical glitches, because the amount of people that will be watching it is that much higher than the normal amount of people that are watching content on One Soccer. So, you can prepare to fix technical glitches, but realistically, you have to address the glitches, and that means they have to occur. So I wouldn't hold your breath for the viewing experience tonight to be smooth as silk. I would have a margin for a few browser resets. It is what it is,
Yep. I don't think that takes away at all from how excited I am about this game, and we'll see. I mean, KJ brought up one too many dark moments in Canada's past for me to be full on confident for tonight. But I think like he said, and like we've been saying all show, again, there's the opportunity they could go behind in this game. There's the opportunity for a bunch of different scenarios that we haven't really seen them in a long time. So for that on its own, this game is incredibly exciting.
What's your projected lineup, Mitch?
I got to go through a full 11 here. Does
your boy Sammy P start?
No, I don't think so. I think Eustachio starts at the base of the midfield. You got Kay in there, especially the way Kay played against Aruba. I think you have
man of the match performance. That took a lot of the way for Mitch to say that.
If Oso,
I know, I saw the pain.
Yeah, that's something to watch, Mitch, is Jonathan Osorio's status for this game, and something
Definitely.
TFC fans should pay attention to as well, because he was obviously injured before heading into international break. He did not make the squad for their match against Aruba, so I'm wondering if he can find himself a place on the bench or even the starting 11, because obviously he's very important to this team, and very important to TFC, so something to watch out for sure. But keep
There'll
going,
be plenty
Mitch.
more opportunities to play
Well,
if we can if we can get past tonight. So
For sure.
But
Another
yeah,
thing
no,
to watch
we-
for with Oso too is I know in the past John Herdman has at least considered him making him captain. So Hoylett was the captain for this past game. I don't expect Hoylett to start in this one just because you've got David, Laren, Davies up front.
And he went off
Sad
injured
Panda.
too.
And he went off
Yeah,
injured
he
that
went-
too.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
so
went- he
there's
pulled
no
up
there's no
man, yeah.
sense risking him, especially with the games against Haiti coming up.
Potentially.
Yeah, obviously they have to get to those first, but at the same time, yeah, it's probably too quick of a turnaround, and you do have better options there.
What about the
Abba gets to
fullbacks?
start.
I think the fullbacks are interesting, especially because we saw Sam Adekubi go out. I don't know why Sam Adekubi was starting in that game, because he's the lone, other than Alfonso, the lone left back on this team, really. So do you put Richie over there? I really hope they don't put Alfonso in the left back position, just because we've seen how that's gone in the past, and I don't think that's the best position for him. So I would hope Adekubi starts and Richie can start on the right side, but I think worst case, if you're working with any combination of Richie, Alistair Johnson, and Zachary Broguillard, I think you should be fine for this game. There's so many available players.
Kava
Yeah.
gets to start.
There's also a good point that Ashton Morgan is available, so they could potentially. I know he's played one game in the past 2 years, but no,
That'd be
offense,
interesting.
it's
That'd be
true.
interesting if
It's
you see
just
Ashton
a
He is
fact.
kind
there.
of clutch though, but
Yeah,
yeah.
he's been in big moments before and done well.
Mhm.
What we saw against either Cayman Islands or Bermuda, I forget which team it was. It was John Herman going with the five at the back, with making Alfonso Davies kind of that wing back and Richie Laryea on the other side. Kind of the way that Greg Vanny used to deploy Richie, in sort of that, what you call it, the joker role, where he can, free up space for either wing back for them to get up the pitch. Do you think that's something maybe we see tonight instead of sticking to a classic 4-4-2 formation or whatever it is that play? You think they can change it up and go three at the back and then the two wing backs? Is that a possibility?
Potentially, I don't know. From what I've seen from Herman, he does tend to stick to the 4-3-3 formation as much as possible, just because that's the system they've built the team in. So I'd be a little surprised if there's too much change. But I mean, any formation at this point in world soccer is pretty flexible. So maybe we see Richie starting more attacking. Maybe we see, like you said, something closer to five at the back. It'll be an interesting one for sure in terms of what John Herdman decides to do with his roster. And I think, as we've said, is one of the biggest decisions he's ever had to make, because this is a big game. You got to win it. You absolutely have to win this.
Win or go home, or
Yeah.
Draw. You can draw.
Yeah,
too.
that's true.
Yeah.
You can also draw this game. Canada has the goal difference by a good amount. So.
Biggest Canada men's national team match in years.
Well, since
gentlemen.
October 2019, but yeah, in 2 years.
What did you even say?
You used 2 years last show and said years, so we're
No, I just gave a date. I didn't correct your grammar.
Fair.
Would you guys say that this match is even bigger than that match in 2019, just because of the World Cup is at stake here?
Oh,
I would
yeah.
say that. I would say it's bigger
yeah.
than that match, right?
This is a
Yeah,
way
be-
bigger match than that.
So that's
Absolutely.
point still stands. Biggest Canadian men's national team match in years.
That's true. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you go past that U.S. game, how far back do you have to go? I guess
Exactly.
pretty
far
Anyway,
back.
yeah.
But Mitch, you didn't answer my question. Do you think Cava starts?
No, I think Laren starts.
Cool.
Yeah. Despite
I
the
think-
fact that he can't stop scoring for Canadian men's national team, he's getting
That's-
tap-ins left, right, and center. But
Yeah.
I agree with Mitch. I can't say
I
that he
think
starts
that's
on Laren.
more opposition versus anything. I don't think I think Laren would have scored those chances as well, though.
Yeah, he might be
Oh.
a flat track bully. As
Yeah. Yeah.
We
But,
touched on Richie. We touched on Ozo. What about a couple of the other international Reds that are kind of making waves around the world right now? I want to give a quick shout out to Eric Zavaleta, who went the full 90 in a World Cup qualifier for El Salvador, and I think it was a 7-0 win I forget who exactly they played. I think it might have been the U.S. Virgin Islands. Maybe it was 11-0 win, something like that. But Eric Z going the full 90 in his first career international start for El Salvador. So shout out Eric Z. Chris Mavinga, who came off in the 45th minute in TFC's last match with an apparent injury. He also went the full 90 in his match there for the Dominican Republic of Congo. I forget the exact country.
That, but I can look it up for you.
Yeah.
Democratic. There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic of Congo.
Vacation, boys.
If we had show titles, I would definitely use that.
Yeah,
I love that. But yeah,
I'm
shout
sure
out Chris
they did
Mavinga
Yeah.
for going the full 90 there for the Democratic Republic of Congo, which
Nice,
I've learned
nice.
is different than the Congo itself. So just to clarify that, I did have to get in the Democratic part.
Yeah.
Also, kind of relative to TFC, Luke Singh, who has turned down the Trinidad and Tobago international call-up. Now, it was cited that he did so because Trinidad was already eliminated from World Cup qualifying. So that could be the reason why he turned it down. But also, there's serious interest there from Canada and Luke Singh. Obviously, he was one of 11 players that were invited to the extended national team camp, along with Iowa Akinola and a couple of other TFC young guns. So I think that's more the writing on the wall towards him leaning towards Canada, and perhaps Canada leaning the same way. But that's something we're going to have to wait and see for. But it's good news, at least from a Canadian soccer perspective, that Luke Singh has not committed to Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, exactly. We've talked about it. That's what we need.
Give us your center backs. We need them.
That's what we
We'll
need.
take all of them. Yes.
Let's finish up just quickly mentioning Io, the post controversy, the caption.
He knows. He knows.
That got me excited. That got me a little bit excited. I'm not gonna lie.
Really, I'm so bored. Just choose a team already, man. It's been years. My God.
There we go.
That's fair, but I feel like it's got to be. I feel like it's got to be close now. I mean, he's in camp. It's a great group of guys. He's in there with all his buddies. Like, just pick Canada, Io.
Yeah.
We have plenty of space for you on the team. Yeah, we think you can do great things for Canada. Just pick Canada.
Just do the right thing, man.
Yeah, just do the right thing.
In the chat, we see we've got some inside information here, and it's that Luke Singh turned down Trinidad and Tobago before they were eliminated from the World Cup qualifying.
Well, that's good because it makes a way better story then.
It's even way better.
Yeah,
way better.
That's what I choose to believe.
Thank you for that information, and that's music to our ears because you know how highly we rate Luke here, and we know how badly Canada Soccer. I have to stop doing that. Canada Soccer needs center backs. So
speaking of center backs, did you see the TFC post with Julian Dunn? And
great
Romeo?
shout out!
Yeah,
yes, sir. They are both back in training. They are both back in training for Toronto FC. Rocco Romeo,
what did you say? They're in training? Hold the hamstring, boys. Jeez, wrap those things up. Training ruins hamstrings. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, Rocco Romeo returning on loan from HB Koje in Denmark. His loan was supposed to expire in June, which I mean is right on point for him returning. Now, TFC's depth at center back, if you include Julian Dunn and Rocco Romeo, it's Omar Gonzalez, Chris Mavinga, Eric Zavaleta, Luke Singh, now Julian Dunn, and Rocco Romeo. That seems about one or two pieces too many, in my opinion, at least. So, if I had to guess, just a hunch, there's another loan move coming for one of those players, but just a hunch.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. A bunch of talking points at the end of the show there, but yeah, this has probably been our longest show of all time. It's got to be getting close there. I know you guys yelled
double
about
guest, guys.
one time, and we went really late.
Yeah.
But
no, the shows that you didn't host, we went like 4.5 hours because you cut us off. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I wasn't here to wrap us up, but probably should at this point. Obviously, huge thank you to Rachel and Kristian. That was incredible. So much good insight there from both of them, and I think just what everyone needed right now in terms of really looking into all the crazy stories that have been going on around Toronto FC and the Canadian men's national team. Thanks as always for watching, listening, and interacting. It's you guys really who have kind of legitimized this platform to the point where people like that want to come on and have these incredible conversations. So we're so thankful for you guys for all the support. Until next Tuesday, have an amazing week, everyone, and allez les rouges.
Cheers.